We have an update when it comes to possible names for the WWE Hall of Fame this year that have been rumoured. A top NXT star's contract is still set to expire this coming spring. Plus, we have the RAW ratings, matches announced for NXT Stand and Deliver, and an update on Big E's broken neck. All this and more in today's WWE news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into today. So let's start off talking about the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2022 as we're on the road to WrestleMania 38. Now, of course, Batista's a really curious one because, of course, he was meant to be going into the Hall of Fame at WrestleMania initially in 2020 when it was in Tampa, of course. And then, obviously, the pandemic happened. Things got cancelled, postponed. The following year, when the 2020 class was going to be inducted and was inducted, Batista requested that he be removed from the class and wait for a later date when he could be inducted in front of live fans. Now, of course, this is the first Hall of Fame that's happening in front of live fans for, 2-3 years now. So people thought, is this going to be Batista's year? Is this the year that Batista goes in? Is this the year that makes up for him not going in 2020? And also, there have been rumors about the Steiner brothers too. So let's start off talking about the Steiner brothers. The Steiner family, of course, is reportedly scheduled to be in Dallas for WWE's WrestleMania 38 weekend. Now, as we've noted, the Steiner brothers, Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner, are rumored for the 2022 WWE Hall of Fame class, which is curious considering some of the things that Scott Steiner said about the WWE Hall of Fame and the WWE in recent years. It was reported earlier in the week that if Scott Steiner isn't interested in being inducted, as he's indicated in the past, then WWE would just induct Rick Steiner, but they want the brothers to go in as a tag team. In an update, PW Insider has confirmed that WWE officials are considering the Steiners for a Hall of Fame induction this year. There has been a lot of talk about the induction in the past week or so. Furthermore, it was noted that a number of the Steiner family members are scheduled to travel to Dallas for WrestleMania 38 weekend. Of course, Bron Breakker, Rick's son, is going to be challenging the new NXT champion Dolph Ziggler at NXT Stand and Deliver on WrestleMania Saturday. That match was confirmed last night, and we'll talk about that as we go through the video here. Now, when it comes to Batista, as we spoke about just a few seconds ago, there has been some speculation on Batista's WWE Hall of Fame induction, but that will likely not be happening this year. As I mentioned, WWE originally had the animal scheduled for the 2020 class, but the ceremony was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was then announced that the 2020 class would be inducted along with the 2021 class last year, but Batista was removed from the list, and he later announced that he could not make the event due to previous obligations. He confirmed that WWE honored his request to induct him in a future ceremony. Now, Batista is expected to be in Dallas for The Undertaker's WWE Hall of Fame induction next month, but word now is that he will likely not be inducted until WrestleMania 39 weekend in Los Angeles. So chances are that Batista's probably going to be the headline name for WrestleMania next year. There had been rumors about The Rock possibly next year, well, not just wrestling, but also having a Hall of Fame induction. We'll wait and see, but if The Rock's not going to go into the Hall of Fame next year, it certainly would make a lot of sense that Batista, Hollywood actor, Marvel star, Drax the Destroyer, would be going into the Hall of Fame in California. That certainly does make a lot of sense. So we'll keep an eye out for that one. WWE, of course, has announced The Undertaker, Vader, and Queen Sharmell for the 2022 Hall of Fame class. WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon will induct The Undertaker. Booker T will be inducting his wife Sharmell. There's no confirmation on who will posthumously induct Vader. Psycho Sid is also rumored for this year's class. Other names are still yet to be announced. When it comes to the Batista one, as I mentioned, Batista does make a lot of sense for California, considering, the acting background and all that kind of stuff, and he's a big name, and he shouldn't go in this year, I don't think, because he deserves to be in a class, to be headlining a class. He doesn't deserve, and look, let's face it, The Undertaker's one of the biggest names of all time. I'm sure he'd be happy to go into the Hall of Fame in the same class as The Undertaker, but Batista deserves to have his moment for his career too, and I don't think putting him in with during the time of The Undertaker would make a lot of sense. And it's in Dallas as well. The location does matter too. I think California makes a lot more sense in my opinion. So he's going to be in there next year. When it comes to the Steiner brothers, I mean, it's very curious because Scott Steiner really has been persona non grata in WWE for the last certainly 5-6 years or so, and that stems obviously from things he said about WWE, specifically the likes of Hulk Hogan and his now ex-wife. I believe it was WrestleMania 31. It might have been when it was in the Bay Area, right? It was in the Bay it was in the Bay Area at Levi Stadium, and he was meant to be flying in. I think he might have been meant to be flying in for the Hall of Fame to attend, and he had said some things about Hulk Hogan, or there had been an altercation with him and Hulk Hogan in an airport, and Scott Steiner had said some crazy stuff because Scott Steiner is crazy and all that kind of stuff. And when those leaked images came out a couple of years ago or last year of when they had the Thunderdome, of images that couldn't be shown on the Thunderdome wall and all that kind of stuff, Scott Steiner's face was one of them. So the fact that he would be able to be inducted into the Hall of Fame just a few years later would certainly be a significant turnaround. But look, his nephew's part of the family now, so that changes a lot of things. So that would be certainly curious. Rick Steiner going in by himself, it should be the Steiner brothers. I mean, not that the WWE Hall of Fame isn't just specific to their WWE career, but if you want to talk about just their WWE career, Rick Steiner was even in WWE in singles action. I don't think he was. He was only there with the Steiner brothers. I think 2-time WWE Tag Team Champions. Scott Steiner, of course, was the one that came back in 2002 and wrestled for WWE, and that run did not go well. But they should go in together, in my opinion. So we'll wait and see with that one. Either way, I think, as the report mentions, I think that there will be some kind of Steiner involvement because Bron Breakker's part of the family, and that's the situation now. So we'll wait and see with that one. We have some contract news about Candice LeRae. Now, of course, we know that her husband, Johnny Gargano, has left WWE. His contract with the company expired. He's still yet to re-sign with anywhere. But Candice LeRae's WWE NXT contract is reportedly still scheduled to expire this spring. It was previously reported that LeRae would remain under contract to WWE until early 2023 due to WWE automatically extending the contract to make up for time off due to injuries and her first pregnancy. But in an update, Fightful Select has reported that LeRae's contract is still set to expire this spring and has not been renewed or frozen as of yet. WWE sources weren't sure if a freeze was even able to happen, considering LeRae was away on maternity leave. Now, regarding LeRae's status, there's a feeling within WWE that she'll not be back in action by the time her contract expires. There's been no talk of a contract extension. LeRae and husband Johnny Gargano welcomed their first child together back in February. Gargano left WWE in December after his contract expired, and there's been a feeling he would remain a free agent until he had the chance to spend a few months with LeRae and their child. It is believed that LeRae and Gargano are on good terms with WWE, and officials would like to have them back if at all possible. It was noted that WWE officials did not want to concern LeRae with contract extension talks while she was recovering from the pregnancy, which is right. I mean, the last thing you need is when you're heavily pregnant or you've just given birth is like, right, what's the contract situation? Should we sit down and talk figures? No, of course it's not. Do I expect Candice LeRae to stick with WWE? I don't, to be honest. I think she'll probably go where her husband goes most likely, which I think is AEW. I think Johnny Gargano, in addition to doing the right thing and spending some time with his family and not feeling the pressure to jump back in straight away and make a splash in another company, I think from a business perspective, he's doing the right thing as well. Because he could go back to WWE, absolutely. I don't know if he'd go back to NXT. He might just go straight to the main roster if he signs a new contract there. I think most likely he's probably going to go to AEW. But right now isn't the right time to go to AEW. The reason why it's not the right time to go to AEW is because everyone's going to AEW right now. It feels like every week there's a new debut. And we are seeing examples in AEW where people come in, they have a big debut, and the week after they have their in-ring debut, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, what are they doing? Not that much. They're in a backstage promo, and maybe they'll compete on Rampage, which not a lot of people watch, and it certainly is the B show. And the reason why that's happening, people can say it's bad booking on AEW's part, and maybe that's a fair criticism, but also it's because there are so many free agents because of how many WWE have released and Ring of Honor and all that kind of stuff. It just is every week. There's never been so many free agents that have been available. I think that will slow down significantly because it doesn't look like WWE is doing as many budget cuts as they were in the last 18 months. They've kind of trimmed the fat to their desire at this point, but more will happen, but not at the rate that it did previously. So we'll wait and see when it comes to Candice LeRae. Like I said, I think the chances are she goes where her husband goes, but I think that's way, way off. Like I said, she gave birth just last month, so that's a long way away, and I'm sure that'll be a story that we'll revisit at some point in the next few months. We have the ratings for Monday Night Raw this week. Monday's live edition of WWE RAW drew an average of 1.700 million viewers on the USA Network, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. Now, this is down 4.22% from last week's 1.775 million viewers. Monday's Raw drew a 0.48 rating in the 18 to 49 key demographic, which is up over 6% from last week's 0.45 key demo rating. Raw ranked number 2 for the night in the cable top 150 after a 4-week run in the number 1 position. This is down from last week's number 1 spot. The top spot went to the NBA game on ESPN between Denver and Philadelphia. Raw ranked 16th for the night in terms of viewership on cable, but it did draw the second best key demo rating of the year so far, whilst also drawing the lowest audience for Raw on the USA Network since January 17, which is funny because that's pretty much what AEW did, and I know we're talking about different numbers here, but that's the trend, isn't it? Is that the key demo rating's good, but the viewership isn't great, and I think that's quite curious, and maybe that speaks volumes to pro wrestling viewership right now. Now, as I mentioned, Monday's Raw viewership was down 7.7% from the same week in 2021, while the key demo rating was down 14% from the same week in 2021 also, which is about par for the course when it comes to WWE viewership. Is on a rule of thumb, it's down between 5 and 10% from the prior year. And as I mentioned, that's television. And that's Raw. That's the situation. Whether or not those numbers will improve when it comes to WrestleMania, time will tell. I think the concerning thing probably would be for WWE is there isn't a huge amount of difference between what they were doing, say, at the end of the year and really what they're doing now. So the question then becomes is, once we get out of WrestleMania season, once we do get into those sort of dead spots of the year, in, say, the spring before SummerSlam or after SummerSlam or at the end of the year, all that kind of stuff, what happens then? Because that's when it gets bad, and that's going to be a really interesting time. We have some matches announced for NXT Stand and Deliver. These were confirmed last night during this week's episode of NXT 2.0. The Stand and Deliver main event will be Dolph Ziggler defending the NXT Championship against Bron Breakker, which is to be expected. Mandy Rose will be defending the NXT Women's Championship against Cora Jade. The Tag Team Championships will be defended in a triple threat at Stand and Deliver. Imperium will be facing MSK and the Creed Brothers, which should be good as well. It's also believed that the NXT Women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic winners will get their shot to the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions Gigi Dolan and JC Jane at Stand and Deliver 2. We also have, obviously, that ladder match for the NXT North American Championship shaping up. The people in so far are Santos Escobar, A-Kid or Grayson Waller, Roderick Strong or Solo Sikoa, of course going against Carmelo Hayes. Tommaso Ciampa also has a match that's been announced for Stand and Deliver. He's going to be facing Tony D'Angelo in what's looking like it's going to be Ciampa's final match. He did a promo last night on NXT 2.0, basically hinting that he's going to be going to the main roster. He's been on Raw recently. He's been rumored for a main roster call-up for a while. They tend to bookend people's NXT runs before big events such as WrestleMania. And let's face it, at this point, Tommaso Ciampa just doesn't fit. He just doesn't fit with what is this version of NXT. He fits in with the old version of NXT, but he doesn't fit in with the new version. And his time will go to the main roster. I shudder to think what they have planned for him. They've already changed his music, which is a sign he was going up to the main roster. The question is, does he keep his name? Because Pete Dunne, Butch is calling. That's a concern right there. Finally, Big E is back home after his broken neck on Friday Night SmackDown. He is back home following a brief hospitalization for the broken neck he suffered. Big E revealed in a tweet that he's already back home after being hospitalized at the University of Alabama at Birmingham Hospital. He said, Drew McIntyre spoke about spending some time with him. He said, quote, "I spent some time with Big E in the hospital last night, and even in that situation, you couldn't take the smile off his face. He is really remarkable. Love your brother. Can't wait to hear the reaction when you return." Big E responded saying, quote, "It meant a ton to me. Thank you for being who you are, my friend." Now, as I mentioned, he spoke in a previous Twitter video that he fractured his C1 and C6 vertebrae, but would not need surgery. He said there's no damage to the spinal cord and no ligament damage. There's no word on how long Big E will be out of action for, but of course, once we get a prognosis or any update about that, we'll keep you updated. Previously, WWE did have plans for the New Day to face off against Ridge Holland, Sheamus, and Butch, the former Pete Dunne, at WrestleMania. Those plans now appear to be scrapped or at least altered, so if we hear any update about what those altered plans are, we'll let you know. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.